Hey, so today I'm going to be showing how I make my puff pastry. Puff pastry is a bit of a weird one because it is like night and day when you buy store-bought pastry and you make your own. It's so much better when you make your own. So we're going to start off with 250 grams of flour in a food processor. I like to use a strong bread flour, just find that it works better. And we're going to use about 150 milliliters of cold water and then just blend them together. Don't forget to add a pinch of salt. I actually forgot to add that in, so I added it in very last minute, but you can add that in with the flour before you put the water in. For this next step, make sure your surface is super clean. The last thing you want is like a hair or something that you roll into your pastry. It's just gross and we don't need it. Put a bit of flour onto the surface and then roll your ball of dough around in it so you can handle it without it sticking to everything. And what we're going to do is we are going to wrap it up in some cling film and we are going to put it in the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes just to help it firm up a little bit. For the next step, you're going to need some baking paper. So what you do is you lay your baking paper out and you get a block of 250 grams of butter. Make sure it's butter, not olive spread or anything like that. You get your rolling pin and you press down on it. You still want your butter to be cold. Make sure it's not warm or melting or anything like that. You want it to be cold, but the purpose of bashing it down is to make it more malleable so you can like move it about and stuff so it will fold into the pastry nicely. Now open up the baking paper and you want to cut the butter in half and lay the two slices of butter on top of each other. And then you want to fold the paper back over it and then repeat the process, bashing it down. Once your butter feels nice and malleable, nice and easy to move without it being like all melted and everything, you want to sort of shape it into a rectangle shape. It will just be a lot easier when you're folding your pastry over. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just bashing the sides in, trying to get it as rectangular as I can. Doesn't have to be like inch perfect, but you know, just try and create a nice shape out of it. It just makes your life a lot easier when you're folding. And then when you're done with that, back into the refrigerator, make sure it's nice and cold so that we can fold it into the pastry and it's not melting everywhere. For this next step, once again, make sure your surface is super clean. Don't want no hairs or dust going into your pastry. Get your ball of dough and roll it out into a big sort of circle shape. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but just something that you've got enough sort of room to play with. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get our block of butter that we've shaped into a sort of rectangle shape. We're going to place it right in the middle of our ball of dough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold the pastry over, one side at a time. Get the top, fold it over, the bottom and fold it over. And then what we're going to do now is press the dough into the butter. I like pressing on the bottom first, the top, and then in the middle, and then I kind of just roll it out. Make sure it's all fairly even as you're pressing it, and then just start to roll it. Make sure that your dough is got enough flour on it and the rolling pin is also very dry. There's nothing worse than getting some moisture on your dough or the rolling pin and then it sticking to the pin and then your whole dough just tears in half. For this first stage, I like to flip it over and just make sure both sides are rolled out quite evenly so they're pressed into the butter. Again, making sure there's flour on the bottom, on the top and on the rolling pin just so it's nice and dry. And at this point, you want to get the top, fold it a third, the bottom, fold it over, spin it a quarter turn, and then repeat the same process. So the more you repeat this process, the more layers you're going to have in the pastry. Each time you're flipping it, folding it, rolling it in, you got more and more layers of that puff pastry, and the more you do it, the better your pastry is going to be. After about 4 or 5 times doing this, I wrap it up in cling film again and then put it back in the fridge for about half an hour just to firm it up. I then take it out of the fridge and repeat this process another 5 or 6 times. And like I said, the more you do it, the more fluffy your pastry is going to be, the better your pastry is going to come out when you're cooking it. So after you finish the last time, you want to wrap it up in some cling film, put it in the fridge to firm up, and then your pastry is ready to go. When you pull your pastry out of the fridge, you should have something that resembles this. It should be nice, soft, springy and fluffy. Just make sure you always wash your pastry in egg before you put it in the oven, and that's what gives you that beautiful golden crust.